These are questions that we're always going to ask ourselves. And one of the questions we ask ourselves is, did evolution occur before life even existed? Now, a new study will shed light on how amino acids evolved over time. Now, new research illuminates the ancient processes from which the first life arose on Earth. Um, now how life emerged on Earth is among the most significant mysteries in science, basically. Um, though it remains an open question in biology, if you ever took classes like that. Now, scientists have had some pretty promising theories as to how a chemical soup eventually generated complex cellular life about 3.7 billion years ago. But a theory is more than just a good guess, and it needs to explain the available evidence that we have today, and it also needs to be testable, like in a lab, stuff like that. Now, there's ample data suggesting that single-celled organisms slowly emerge from the random assemblage of chemicals floating around in water. Now, for instance, we can see signatures of ancient life in the form of microbial mats. Microbiomats are sheets of dead, fossilized microbes that form in a sediment on the surface of rocks. Um, we can estimate their age with the radiometric dating, and then they can chemical analyze it, and it gives us a sense of when life began and when it first formed. Um, Now we can put this theory to the test using experiments that simulate our best estimates of what an ancient Earth would look like, or was like, basically. Back in 1952, the Miller-Urey experiment, for example, simulated the conditions of Earth's early atmosphere by passing electrical sparks through a mixture of gases, primarily methane, ammonia, and hydrogen. Now, the experiment produced several organic compounds, including amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. And indeed, scientists believe that amino acids existed in great abundance in the Earth's early years, and that these pieces contributed to create the first cell. Um, Amino acids are like the letters in an alphabet, while proteins are like words. With enough protein, you can form sentences. In this case, biological pathways that are a little more like microscopic Rube Golding machines that allow life to do well everything, basically. Now, proteins are not considered alive by most biologists. They are large, complex molecules made up of long chains of amino acids, which are essential to the structure and function of all living organisms. So where do we draw the line between unliving protein and living organism? And it comes down to those pathways governed by the grammar of biology, which we call DNA. Um, Now, in other words, understanding how life started means figuring out how DNA formed in the first place, and understanding what Earth looked like prior to the emergence of life and what kinds of amino acids and proteins were swirling around, which means that we are one step closer to understanding how all of life emerged. Um, a new study in the Journal of the American Chemical Society suggests that evolution began long before life emerged, and that proteins swirling around in the primordial soup had selected for preferable traits. Now, in other words, there was a sort of Darwin selection effect taking place even prior to the emergence of life among the unliving proteins and amino acids in the primordial soup. Now, this idea explains why, even though hundreds of different amino acids may have been present on the early Earth, all living things rely on only about 20 of these compounds. So, why did this specific amino acid get picked? So, um, you see the same amino acids in every organism, from humans to bacteria, and so on and so on. And that's all. And that's because all things on Earth are connected through this tree of life that has an organism that was the ancestor to all living things. Stephen Breed, a Johns Hopkins chemist who co-led the research and scientists at Charles University in the Czech Republic, said in the statement. Now, basically, we're describing the events that shaped why that ancestor got the amino acids that it did. Um, Now, why are there 20 amino acids that are so important? And increasing evidence suggests that the ancient life first arose using just 10. And to test this theory, the experimenters created several different libraries of various amino acids combinations and then screened them for two things. There's their solubility and secondary structure propensities. It sounds complicated, and it is, but these terms simply relate to the proper shapes of proteins. Um, the protein shapes and how they fold are pretty critical to their function. This determines how they interact with other molecules in their environment, but think of them like a sheet of origami paper that can be folded into many different patterns. So by testing which libraries had the best solubility and structure, the researchers could conclude that proteins were evolving and driving natural selection before even forming living things. Now, over time, the proteins that were the best shape for the biochemical processes were incorporated into the fundamental cycles of life. Now, the protein folding was basically allowing us to do evolution before there was even life on our planet, Fried said. You could have evolution before you had biology, and you could have natural selection before the chemicals, and that are useful for life even before there was DNA. Now, to have evolution in the Darwin sense, you need to have this whole sophisticated way of turning genetic molecules like DNA and RNA into proteins. But by replicating the DNA, it also requires proteins. So we have a chicken and egg problem. What came first, the chicken or the egg, is what a lot of people ask. Our research shows that nature could have selected for building blocks with useful properties before the Darwin evolution theory. So, of course, the more we study how life formed on our planet, the better we can estimate how life on other planets may form. Amino acids are abundant in asteroids, suggesting that the conditions for alien life forms to spawn exist in other corners of the universe also. The universe seems to love amino acids, Fried said, but maybe if we found life on a different planet, it wouldn't be that fucking different. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the about section of YouTube for just a few bucks a month. Your donation can help go a long way. Yeah, but leave a comment, let me know what you think. Yep.